So today's rabbit hole, Leigh, what are we going to explore in the rabbit hole of today?
We're going to explore, what are we going to find down there? Well, we're not going to go as random this week. Last week we did podcast roulette, didn't we? Which was really fun, actually. I quite enjoyed that one. Going back through it, there's a lot of gold in there. But this week, we thought it'd be very fitting to speak about why it doesn't pay to act and think like an employee.
It's a bit of a mindset podcast this week, a little bit of a mindset, because there's always that piece that you speak to as well about like having the investor mindset. I feel like that's a level above where we're speaking even today. It's like the next level again, once we get past employee mindset into business owner mindset, and then above that is investor mindset.
Yeah. So that's going to be the basis of today's talk, especially in modern day, why it doesn't pay. Well, look, let's caveat this. If you want more for your life and you want to make the most of the time that you're here on this planet and the energy that you have, then especially now, it doesn't always pay to think and act like an employee. Now, we'll dig a bit deeper into that shortly. But what's changed? Let's talk about what's changed. For the longest time, especially through industrial age money making, which I've come to look at it in waves lately, like waves of economy, like that big industrial gap was like second wave economy. And it worked for such a long time. It was a great machine, but all good things must end, right? And I feel like now we're coming into like what they call like third wave economy, where things are different, and it's not so much about big corporation, big brand, big safe like employment structures. We're seeing the demise of that now. And that leads us to our topic of like why it doesn't always pay, especially if you want the most out of life, to think that way. So what are your thoughts on that? Where did you start on that train of thought?
Yeah, so for me, I feel, first and foremost, I want to frame this conversation with, if you're listening to this is for you. If, number one, you are an employee right now and you're working for someone else, this conversation's for you. Also, if you own a barbershop or you own a salon or you run a business, it doesn't have to be just the hair world, and you lead employees, because it's really important to let people know why this is beneficial for them to have the mindset of a business owner when you are an employee, because I feel like a lot of people become a little bit stuck there. So I just wanted to pre-frame it with that. But earlier this year, I got invited to do a talk at Kangan Institute, which was pretty cool. And I went down there in an evening, and the talk was kind of based around some of the skills that are necessary to live like a life of freedom as a hairstylist. And one of the first questions I asked everybody there that evening was, all right, guys, put your hand up. Put your hand up in the room if you own a business. And, not many people put their hand up, probably like, I don't even know, bro, like a quarter of the room, maybe less, put their hand up. And I kind of went on to say, look, every single hand should have been put up there, because the reality of life is that we all own and run our own businesses. Our life is essentially our business. And if we don't mind our own business, somebody else is going to control it. So for me, it's really important to water our own grass. There's that whole saying of like, the grass is green where you water, like the grass is greener where you water it, not where whereas somewhere else it's greener. Because I think a lot of employees kind of fall into that trap of thinking the grass is greener for business owners, the grass is greener somewhere else. But really, it's not in a lot of cases. And one thing that's been really beneficial for me in my career from the day that I started, I've only ever worked in one barbershop, and I've only ever worked for myself in one environment, which was my mother's salon in Ireland. So from day one, from day one, I had to brand myself, I had to market myself, I had to sell my products. And essentially those are the skills that are needed to live that life of freedom. So when I did eventually go and work in a barbershop, which is a very beneficial part of my journey, by the way, I still carried over the skills from running my own column and running my own books. And I knew that the benefit of that, because that essentially is the way out. And I mean, look, a lot of employees can fall into the victim mindset of, I can't do anything about it anyway. It's like, you can do as much as you want to about it if you make yourself valuable enough to the business that you're working for. Because if you make yourself valuable enough to that business, you can do essentially whatever the fuck you want right now. Because there's a crisis, there's an employment crisis. A lot of barbers are going self-employed, like working for themselves or opening their own shops or whatever it is. So to really find and hire great team members these days is becoming harder and harder. But if you are a team member, caveat as well, sometimes it's more beneficial to be a team member than it is to own your own barbershop. Comes with a whole different set of, challenges that people aren't actually prepared for from time to time. So the importance for me comes when it comes back to one of our core values of choice. It's like, okay, then what's the opposite? If you don't treat yourself like your own business, if you don't brand yourself and market yourself and look after your own life, if you don't mind your own business, what's the opposite? You're just going to be a victim to life and not have any choice. It's, we get the roadblock all the time of people saying, I can't put my prices up because I work in a barbershop and I don't get to decide that. Well, newsflash, you do get to decide that by building your brand.
And I struggle to believe or see where that's ever a problem. Like, if I had a barbershop and an employee came to me and said, Leigh, I'm putting my prices up tomorrow, I'd be like, fantastic. Like, I'd like to think that, knowing me and knowing us, if that ever came to it, they would have frameworks and have a great thought process around that. And my reply would be brilliant. And we hear it a lot, don't we? We do a lot of different talks and chats with people, and that whole thing of, I like to ask, do you have control of your own price point and gaining your own clients? And there's a yes or a no, and I don't see why it would ever be a problem for an employee to raise their price. It's quite an interesting one. But you hit on some brilliant points there, and something that I want to just double down on from what you said at the start about, business owners supporting their employees in this way as well. A lot of business owners actually get into business with an employee mindset. They don't actually shift their mindset from employee, because what we see a lot in the barber world, let's keep it really niche specific right now. This probably is the same throughout lots of businesses, but barber world, someone might spend 5, 6, 7, 8 years on the floor working for someone else, getting busy, making the money, and they're starting not see the return on their investment for time and skill set. So they think, bugger it, that's it, I'm going to go and open my own shop. Not realizing that it's not the same model, just you own the place. It's completely different. There are so many added things for that person that has just been working on that floor the whole time. for a long enough amount of time, the shop's done a lot of branding for you, and you've probably collected a lot of clients through the shop environment. Now, when it's your own, it's a completely different thing. You then have to brand that shop, brand yourself, and help to brand everybody else in that shop as well. There's like this reciprocal cycle of branding going on, which I don't see that mindset shift quite a lot. And in this modern day, we have this chat a lot. I wouldn't encourage anyone to open a shop unless they built a reasonably strong brand, because it's so hard to do, especially today. We've been talking about lately, like respecting the supply and demand curve of the industry. We speak to supply and demand a lot in terms of the professional and the consumer relationship, but for the professional themselves, we have to respect the relationship of supply and demand through the industry for ourselves. And it's a saturated industry right now. There's a lot of demand, but there's also a lot of supply. That makes it saturated, and much like social media, it's harder to stand out. And that's why I say, it's a risky game just going into it with no brand behind you and just opening a shop. It's quite a risky game today because it's so saturated. So yeah, like to double down on something you said at the start, which I think was a key point there, was even business owners do go into business with an employee mindset. And that explains where we're going to go to in a minute, of like why it pays for an employee not to think strictly like an employee and take on a bit more of that business owner, business operator mindset.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And like when, we hear this a lot, right? So when you think about yourself as a barber, if anyone's listening to this and they're a barber, you think about yourself as a barber. Do you have a clientele? Do you have regular clients? If the answer is yes, which is most people, you have your own business. You're basically running your own business, and you're already branding yourself based on the fact that you have a regular clientele that are coming back to you. They're the people that are paying your bills, essentially. So they're the people that are going to keep paying your bills. And that is what's going to give you options and choice. Very rarely do people go to a barbershop for the barbershop. Now you get those people as well, but we're in the human connection game, personal brand. It's people want an individual stylist. It's like, that's where I see it going. And that is what gives people options and choice. How does anybody go from being an employee to say, you know what, I think I'm going to open my own shop? Let's just break that down for a second. It's because you have enough clients and you've done the maths to think, I can do this by myself. And then you go and do it. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, not everyone does that. And one thing that, look at this. I want to get into the content creation piece in a bit, but like, it's probably not for. It can go so many different ways. I'm just thinking like, oh my God, what do we even touch on first? Because
I'm enjoying unpacking the whole business bit first, putting context around this. I think this is such an important thing for anybody listening to understand where we're coming from with this and the power of it. And that's what it's exciting, because some people can listen to things like this and think, it's all doom and gloom, but it's actually really exciting, because if you can understand the power of it, it will change like the trajectory, basically probably of your whole life from this point forward. And to your point there of like people realizing, okay, I've got enough clients, this, you realize, I've been running my own business anyway, because it's such a unique business model that we're in the hair game. Because yes, okay, historically there have been some big branded salons, and that has worked, but I'd say for the last 10 years not as much. And the way I see them is like salons now are just big hubs. They're big hubs for like containing personal brands. And I don't really know of a salon. I'm trying to think of one where the brand outweighs the people. There might be some in Europe, and the UK, but not so much really in Australia. And that's where I see it, is like, you know, salons. Let's try and make an equivalent to something else. Let's go to the food world, right? A massive brand in the food world, McDonald's. I bet you don't know the person that made your burger at McDonald's, and I bet you never will know them, and I bet you don't keep going back to them to get the same burger made from that person. You just don't, because the brand of McDonald's outweighs the personal brands inside McDonald's. Now, imagine if you had a massive personal brand inside McDonald's. That could be interesting.
Well, there's an example of that. That Salt guy. What's the Salt Bay guy?
Yeah, Salt Bay. Yeah.
You know, he's a personal brand within his restaurant chains.
Exactly. Imagine you had someone developing their personal brand, and they're catching content with them. Hey guys, I'm an employee at this McDonald's at this venue, blah, blah, blah. And people start to see this. I bet you'll get hundreds of people going through drive-through just to go and see that person, praying that they're going to get served by Dave, the guy on the personal brand that works at McDonald's. So I think that's where it's quite unique for us, is like, that doesn't happen as strongly like that. I don't see salon brands outweighing personal brands much anymore. Now, like I say, there are exceptions, there are a few, but it's slowly becoming outweighed. And I mean, like you said earlier, you think this is where it's going. I think it's already here. I just think we're really early in the piece right now, and the big money is going to be made in the personal brand, like 100%. And I think, like, you are one of the first living examples of that. HH is one of the first living examples of that. The big money is going to be made in the personal brand, not so much from the salon brand anymore.
Well, I'd like to draw another equivalent, and I feel this is a really great way to look at it. So if you look at football as an industry, right? So football is the industry. Hair is the industry. Really great brands in football. Let's just talk about Manchester United for a second. Okay, so Man United, super brand. Yeah, super brand, right? Like, fantastic brand. Everyone around the world knows who they are as a totality. So that in the hair world is probably the equivalent to like Tony and Guy. You know, most people around the world know Tony and Guy. They know that it's a strong brand. There's a level that comes with Tony and Guy that if you go into any Tony and Guy around the world, you know what to kind of expect. Now, a poorly branded salon or football team is just a place where it's a hub, like you were saying. So, for example, Manchester United isn't Old Trafford. Old Trafford is where Manchester United play. But it's the brand of Manchester United that just play within that place. Now, a lot of people, where they go wrong is they don't build the brand. Manchester United as a brand makes a lot more money than ticket sales at Old Trafford. You know, people wouldn't buy the merchandise, the shirts, whatever Man United are selling outside of just the tickets. Like, the tickets aren't keeping that club going. Like, that is a fact. You know, it's the brand of Man United that's keeping that club going. Now, let's go another level deeper. It's the players within the brand that really have the leverage. So that's the same with the salon world.
Yeah, I love that filtration system, because, you know, you take London, right? It's like one of the best hairdressing hubs in the world. Got the best of the best go there. So you've got London, but London isn't the brand. It's just the place in which the great salons are, in which the great hairdressers are, and those are the brands. So I've seen a shift, and I love the way that you explain that, because there's that step down system there. I think what historically happened was you had the city, you know, in Australia, Sydney, Melbourne, probably known to have the best hairdressing kind of hubs in Australia. And then you had the salons, and then the salons put their DNA all over the people. And then I think that's why people were attracted to the salon brand. But now, last 10 years, that script has flipped. And now it's the DNA of all the people and their individual skills all over the salon brand. And that's where you get a hub of personal brands. Now, that does work in the favor of the salon if they just part of smart business is keeping up with what is going on in brand and marketing. If salons started to brand themselves, look, we are a hub of killer personal brands and people, that would be a standout of its own, and people would want to go to that brand to join the hub of great personal brands. But I don't see that happening right now, because what I see and what we see through our business is salon owners still expecting superstars to come to them for nothing. They just expect them to turn up for what? I just expect you to be this way and you do this. It's like, wow, okay. If you're not going to help, if it's not a reciprocal thing, then you're not going to get them. The day of getting the superstars, let's use Man United, for example. Why do all the best players want to go and play for Man United? There's a reciprocal thing going on there. There's a reason all the great players don't go to my hometown, Plymouth Argyle. There's a reason. There's not a reciprocal agreement going on. That brand, they're not feeding each other. Say if Ronaldo went to Plymouth Argyle, it would be the Ronaldo show. It's outweighed.
There's probably not enough Plymouth Argyle fans to even make that a smart business move. And I think, when you look at football, that's what people need to remember, is football is a business. And people get lost in the game of it, and hair is the same. People get lost in the craft, and they forget that it's a business. It's not just about the craft or just about the football. There's a reason that all these business deals happen, and these footballers go to certain clubs, and the bigger the brand is, the more leverage they have, the more power they have in the negotiation. If you're not even good enough as a player, you don't have an agent, and the agent is the people, or are the people who speak to these collectives, which is the overall brand, like Man United, on behalf of the player to negotiate a really good deal, so that it is reciprocal. Because you can look at it like this, Old Trafford is only Old Trafford. It's just a location. That spot on earth means nothing without Manchester United. And Manchester United means nothing without the players that are involved in it. So you can look at it like location, collective, individual. But some people who own a salon think that it's all about the location, or they think it's all about the collective, and they're forgetting that it's actually about the individuals. But then the individuals need to realize that it's about the individuals as well, because the individuals, the employee mindset that we were just speaking about, the employees not thinking that it's about them actually fucks up the whole thing for themselves.
You're at stalemate then, aren't you? Because the salon is expecting from the people, and the people are acting like it's an old school business, like it's a second wave business, and we get stale because the gap in the middle, the two never quite merge. They just go like this, and that's where we're at in modern. That's where we're at in modern world right now. And like you said there, that is a prime piece of advice for any business owner out there. What are you doing to facilitate the growth of the humans, which we can call employees? What are you doing to make that a reciprocal agreement? Why would they want to come and work with you and for you? That's massive, huge. What are you doing to facilitate their personal brand growth? What's there for them? Because to expect someone to just come and work for you now, with the tools that people have, it's so easy to just do it on your own. And, we know people doing it on their own that are making more than salons make. Top line, the profit. I think we know individuals that are taking on more profit than salon owners or people running barbershops. So, it's not hard to find this information anymore. We've got more information than we've ever had. Google and ChatGPT combined, you can literally, it's not hard anymore to work it out. So yeah, massive.
The hardest thing is the business owner switching from the employee mindset to business owner mindset and actually taking some time to think, because it's kind of like this whole it goes so far to both sides of the spectrum, in my opinion. Like, you know, you have, like we spoke about at the start, the employees who can't see why it's beneficial to them to personal brand themselves within someone's shop, which is actually just a lazy way of like not wanting to do more work. And I don't really see this, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, and sorry to any Australians who are listening to this, but I don't really see this as a problem in the UK and in Ireland, because over there, if you don't do it, you don't survive. Like, you don't get past a certain point. If you don't do that, you don't get to a certain level. Whereas in Australia, people are collecting a really nice wage anyway. Like, look at what happened throughout COVID. Like, we all got paid $700 or $800 a week to just sit at home and not really do much. So, like we always say, the survival has become nearly too easy, meaning that people don't have to do it. And like, it's a great thing. But if you really want to push your life and career to the next level, and you want ultimate freedom and you want ultimate choice, then branding yourself and putting yourself in your own mind, placing yourself in your own mind as a business is essential. It's key. And yeah, we could go so many directions. My mind now is like gone to like, where do we go next with this? Because
I really agree with you that the conditions of any given society really do create, you know, what goes on within people and business and behaviors. Like you say, you know, UK, Ireland, Europe, tough conditions, man. There's a lot of people doing it. There's a lot of people, you know, Australia is a very fortunate country. You know, there's people charging peanuts in the UK and Europe, you know, good quality too. Like, you know, reasonably good quality, charging peanuts. It's tough conditions. And that's why I think we see all these people hammering their personal brand, keeping up with, you know, marketing themselves and constantly staying in that loop. Yeah, so I totally agree. The conditions shape society for sure, and behavior. And that's, I think, one of our upper hands is we come from those environments, so we get to see it, and it's hard for us to understand why people wouldn't do it. And I think what we've seen is when you layer that on top of an already quite fortunate society, the stuff you can do is wild. Is wild.
Yeah,
like we said earlier, you know, there's things we've done in our careers, and in particular, I'm like, I don't even know if I could have done this in the UK. Like, layering up on top of a fortunate society.
I don't think so.
Is wild.
I
mean, look,
personally, for me, don't think so.
Look, never say never. It doesn't mean I wouldn't give it a go, but would it have been, you know, as fruitful? Who knows? Purely from what we know understand about the conditions, who knows if it would have been as fruitful? But wow, there's so much opportunity out there, and I think that's why we kind of framed the beginning of this conversation around like, look, guys, this stuff only matters if you care. I personally think it's a good idea to care, because it's not hard to be uncommon amongst common these days, and there is so much to be had in life. You know, life is short, but it's long enough if you live it well. There's so much to be had. What else are we going to do? You know, we've only got so much allocated time. Time has the same plan for all of us. Like, let's do something with it. Let's push the boundaries. You know, we say it all the time, growth is one of the human needs. You know, if we don't grow, we're dying. And I think life's just too short just to settle. Now, again, do whatever you want to do. But if you want more of this, conversation's for you. And I think I'm really excited for where we're going to go to next. But I think that sets a nice foundation for where we think about this in terms of a business mindset. I think we're seeing the demise of the big salon brand. and we're seeing the rise of the personal brand, and it pays even if you are as an employee within a barbershop, which is beneficial for those 5 years and under. Anybody who's in the first 5 years of their career, it's not a bad thing to be an employee. We're not saying that at all. It's not a bad thing, because the foundations, the growth curve of your career, it's sometimes an unsafe bet to go out on your own too early, purely because of what we're about to speak about. You don't have your brand built yet, and the trust isn't there, the evidence isn't there. That's okay. That's totally fine. But if it's encompassed in the plan, which is what we're going to talk to you about next, then it's very calculated. And something that Hormozi says, which I love, is at some point in your career when you want to get good at something, try and find a way to get paid to learn. Now, if you can go into the barbering world with that, say, right, next 3 years, I'm going to try and find the best mentors I can find within an establishment already, within a reasonably good brand, reasonably good talent, and get paid to be in that place. Genius. Get paid to learn. Fantastic, as long as you consciously know that that's what you're doing, and it doesn't stop there.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think, to speak to my journey so far, like I was saying at the start, I worked for myself in my mother's salon, and I realized pretty early that I needed to build more evidence. So I found the person who was the best known in my area and branded myself by association with that person to essentially leverage my own business. So I looked at Cork, Paul Mac. I was like, all right, if I get trained with Paul Mac, then people in my hometown are going to trust me more. It's going to only leverage my brand. Then, I'm going there every week and I'm tagging him in stories, and then he's resharing them to all his followers. And then that's how the ball starts rolling down the hill. It's like this whole thing of compound interest, right? Being the 8th wonder of the world. Well, personal brand is the 9th wonder of the world. You heard it here first. We did. But this is the thing, right? There's two ends of the spectrum, and I was speaking to that a second ago. There's the employees on one end of the spectrum who are thinking that it's not beneficial to them to do a personal brand or build somebody else's brand or their shop. But then there's the business owner on the other end of the spectrum who, not always, but sometimes, it's like a confusion point. The blend and the crossover between them isn't seamless or smooth because everybody's got a slightly different outlook and view on it. And some business owners are all for, let's go, let's push, let's get everyone's personal brand hopping. I'm so happy and delighted for you to then take that and go forward with it. But then you get the business owners who hoard their employees and don't actually, this is a really crucial thing. If you own a business and you're not always looking for new people for the next cycle or the next wave, and if you don't expect people to leave, you're dreaming. There's something fucking not clicking, because that is just a natural growth. Things are not always going to be the same. No matter how much you think they are, people will change and people will leave and people will grow, and that's just part of business, it's part of life. I've learned that through all of my experiences so far with life and with my career and with whatever. So I think it's finding that happy medium, but it's also a big thing where I see business owners getting a little bit confused on it is that they're almost afraid that if the personal brands become bigger than the business, then they're going to fail. Now that in itself is fundamentally flawed as a thought process, because, and this is why, if somebody in your team is amazing and becomes bigger than the brand, what does that do? It attracts more people to come and work within the team. Like you were saying, Leigh, like you were saying, people then will be attracted to the place and they'll come and they'll work for the place. We've experienced this. based on the fact that there's a great team there. And that in itself has such a knock-on effect and ricochet effect, domino effect, whatever you want to call it, compounding effect on the overall brand of the business. Whereas what's the opposite? Have someone who's great, get them to a certain point, screw the fucking cap on them, keep them where they're at just for your own good. That's going to blow up later down the line.
Totally. And I love that conversation. I hear this in like a lot of the leadership stuff that I listen to, and it's like, look, really, you've probably got 5 good years out of somebody. Maximum, you can expect 10. Like maximum. That's best case scenario, because everybody, like we say, growth is one of the human needs. Like, people need growth at some point. But to your point of like employers encouraging personal brand, it only helps the business. Like, if your business has like 5 to 10 absolute A-grade killers in it, that's only good for business. Now, this is what one of our pieces of advice is, like, leaving your emotions out of business. People are in it, they get a little bit too emotional. Oh, well, I've provided this place for you, so, you should really just stay here and work for me, like they owe you something. Where that's not really a reciprocal thing. Reciprocal thing is like, look, yes, come and work here, we'll all grow together. And if you just happen to exceed the growth of this place, good on you. I think what we probably see is that if personal brand and personal growth was encouraged a bit more, the people who work within that established company would see that and be like, wow, look at the growth that I've had here. I'd like to work with you further to see if there's anything else we can do together. Not pack up and quit and be like, I'll see you later, because realistically, where else are you going to get that? I think the tables would turn. So it only benefits the business because let's face it, the bigger the personal brands are, the bigger the more clients you're going to attract, the bigger the supply and demand issue becomes, the higher your prices you get, the more profit you make, the bigger your business gets, the more people you can hire. It only gets better. The better the relationships are. People feel seen, they feel heard, they feel appreciated, acknowledged, they feel useful. These are all the things that humans look for. And if we could just remove our emotions from that as a business owner, wow, like what a great place that would be. So yeah, it only benefits. Like you say, screwing the cap on someone and just letting that pressure build in the bottle, of course it's going to explode. The glass bottle's going to explode at some point. And we've seen it happen. We've witnessed it happen, multiple times, which is sad.
And that glass bottle exploding actually has worse effects on the overall team, because they get splintered with it. They get little glass splinters.
It's like shrapnel, right? Like, everybody gets a little piece of the shrapnel and they're like, oh, what happened there? What happened there? They just see the blast. Whoa. And then that fragments them. Yeah, that's huge. But, it's sad to think about, because I feel like we were early to the piece in that point. We were a team of great, not only great practitioners, but great personal brands. And it was a buzz. It was a buzzing hub. The place to be, not just in Australia, but, globally too. A lot of people in the world wanted to be there. So, massive piece of advice moving forward. Massive piece of advice for business owners.
I think it requires a deep level of self-awareness as a business owner to really do that well. And one of the things we spoke to already is an employee getting busy enough. This is just a typical story now, guys, all right? Generalization. Don't take it personally. Typical story. Employee, really good at what they do, gets really busy, has a brainwave, wants to open their own shop, does it, so leaves the place that they were working, where they built their clientele, where they built their brand, leaves the place that they were working, goes and opens their own shop, realizes a couple of months in that this isn't what I thought it was, and now I have more respect for the person that I worked for. And then, because of that realization, becomes somebody who wants to hold on to everybody because they realize that this isn't like, they try and skip out on the leadership skills. And I think that's the missing ingredient, is the leadership skills, and knowing that it's a cycle, that it's going to keep cycling and cycling and cycling. Now, with that being said, that's shadow work and awareness, because people in this story, the people that I'm talking about in this story, the generalization, the example, the kind of made up thing, they don't want. So what they did themselves to get to that place, they don't want that to happen to them, which is in itself is a contradiction. It's like, okay, but you did that, and now you don't want people to do that, and you're giving out about people doing that just because you know that that is somebody else's natural growth curve. Now, like that is a sure way to fuck up a business and blow it up in the wrong way. Whereas the opposite end of the spectrum, like you were saying, you take somebody, you develop them, you show them the ropes, give them the insight to your business, show them how it works, and they'll probably be like, I feel so safe, appreciated and seen here, and I don't feel like I'm being taken advantage of or manipulated. I know exactly how this thing works, and now that I know how it works, I actually have it really good here, and I don't really want to leave, and they'll never leave. And you do see that happen too.
Yeah. And I think it opens up the possibility now. I don't know what would happen because I just don't see this happening. But I wouldn't be surprised if people thought more, why can't we build something together? I would love that. Somebody with like 5-10 years business experience on me, showing me the ropes, making me feel seen, heard, safe, like, and acknowledged and useful inside their own business. And then I'd be like, wow, like, why wouldn't I want to work with this person? If this is the level of leadership they're showing me, and this is the type of business that they've already built, why can't we work together on something? That's a great, I feel like that's a great scenario, and I think that could rebuild the barbering industry. That could rebuild a lot of people's issues. Something I hear in there, something that comes to mind, and something that we are really good at in AMP is helping people understand what even is the point of their business. I think that's a big one. I think not a lot of people know what's the purpose of their barbershop. They don't know. If it's only to make money, like if that's the only reason, you're going to have these problems regardless, because you can only see people as pawns. You're going to only see people as cogs in the wheel, and that's all they're ever going to be to you. I just need workers. I just need people that can shift 10, 20 haircuts a day, 5 days a week. That's it. That's all I need. It's like, okay, well, if we look at the supply and demand curve of the industry, not the consumer demand, if we look at the supply and demand curve of the industry, guess what? It's saturated right now. So if you keep treating people like that, guess what? They're either going to leave, try and do their own thing, or just go to another shop. That's why people see people shop hopping, because it's the same shit just everywhere. They get sick of that person, they go to the next one. Sick of that person, go to the next one. Now this explains why it doesn't pay for an employee to think like an employee anymore. Because so we've spoken a lot about the business model and the business owner. I think we should speak a little bit to the employee now of how you can save yourself the stress and the worry of shop hopping. Because we chat to loads of people who are employees, and it's the same thing everywhere they go. They're like, I've worked in 5 shops and they're all shit. It's like, yeah, because they're all the same. Nobody really knows what the purpose of their business is, and if they do, it's just money for them. So you are always going to be a cog in the wheel. Always. So for all the employees out there, or even contractors or self-employed people working within businesses, this next part of the chat is for you. So, why does it not pay to think like an employee?
One last thing before we move on to that, on the business owner side of the spectrum. one of our coaches told us indirectly through an email of his, a little thing about like monthly recurring revenue versus scale, essentially. Well, and how that's actually really important for scale. Now, somebody in the hair industry who's done it really well is Oscar Cullinan from Oscar. If you look at how Oscar has done it, like go and find the episode of the podcast that we did with Oscar on the Network podcast, go watch it, listen to how he has grown a salon empire. Now that is a lot different mindset than what we see with the person who is trying to keep it concise, keep it small. That sounds like a lot of work to me, right? Like, so one of our coaches, a guy called James Kemp, he's like a coach and a mentor and an advisor that we buy some of his courses. We consume all of his content on a daily basis. Love what he does, right? He said something about business. Whereas if you have a 30, say for example, barbershop, right? 30K a month. But you start every single month at 0. And every week you have to get up to, 7.5K a week or whatever it is in order to meet that 30K. Whereas if you have 25K of that locked in on recurring revenue, you don't have to find new team. People are solid. You have a solid team in place that are bringing in recurring revenue every month. The way that one person acts and the way that the second example acts, completely different energetically. And that is the benefit of building a strong brand and a strong team of personal brands. It's not so reactive. And I feel like a lot of people in the barbering world who go from an employee into business owner are very reactive in how they approach business. They're only thinking about next week, 2 weeks time, next month. They're not looking at, okay, what is the big picture here? Somebody like Oscar had to zoom out and be like, we're capped here. Like, we can't do any more. And we have really good people. How are we going to incentivize those people and how are we going to grow? And if we do that, I actually don't have to do much at all. And now he just oversees it all and he's got salons all over Australia. He's an absolute multimillionaire. Like, that is how you grow a business and a brand. So anyway, so back to your question, like that's just something to really consider there. Like, are you doing things from a reactive place or a proactive place? And big question to ask.
Yeah. One more thing as well, which has kind of just popped into my mind, is like, I do have a little bit of compassion for the business owner who wants to cap their stylists or their key players and not let them go anywhere, because it all depends on the level of personal development and the level of awareness that you have and that you've done on yourself. And that's why we always say, business is a spiritual game. Business is the best personal development course you'll ever go on. Now, I think we could both agree here, the success of your business will correlate directly to how much personal development you've done. And what we see is a lot of business owners haven't done a lot of personal development, and they jump into the business world, and the stress, the hard work, the pain of building the team to where it was leaves an imprint on their nervous system and on their brain, and just naturally they go, oh, the pain, I don't want to go through that again. So they try and hold on and cap it where it is, because they just like it where it is. Control, certainty. But with a little bit of coaching and a little bit of personal development, we realize there's cycles and seasons, and people are people, and one of the human needs is growth. So I can't cap people. Once you realize that, and something we're developing right now is a growth strategy for barbershops and barbershop owners, that's where the magic happens. If we can settle into the growth cycle and then, like you say, put that on scale and then start to build our income level and our wealth levels that way, I think we've got a well-oiled machine. I think we've got empowerment all the way through. We've got growth all the way through. We've got adaptability all the way through, because we just get to keep an eye what's working, what's not. We're not getting burping. We might not get emotionally attached. to the outcomes of these things. The pain isn't so painful anymore because we realize that was just part of our growth. That was part of my personal development in business. Now let's really start to build a business that's purposeful and is in line with the mission. So I see that as well. I have compassion for that because I can understand that that's painful. But we can't let that pain hold us back. You know, we turn that pain into our purpose, right? Turn that our mess into our message. Like, that's what we need to do, and to use that to build better systems, better, more empowering systems for the whole industry.
Yeah. Well, there's two ways you can approach that if that sounds relatable. You can bury your head in the sand, or you can do something about it. And doing something about it could be as simple as reading a book. And a really great book that I would recommend for anybody who relates to that is 12 and a Half by Gary Vee. The 12 and a half emotional ingredients that are necessary for business success. And one of them is humility. And it takes a lot of fucking humility as a business owner to just admit sometimes that we fucked up or we got it wrong. And to be able to have that difficult conversation and talk about it and be like, you know what, like, definitely fucked up here, but let's make it right. Instead of just, no, I'm going to hold on to what's coming in next week. Because when you're just focusing on next week, it's very hard to see that you're coming to the edge of a cliff sometimes, and you could fall off the edge of a cliff. Whereas, you know, if you zoom out, if you're only working on like small little, you know, micro movements, and you don't see that you're actually going towards the edge of a cliff, rather than if you zoom out and look at it from a yearly, quarterly basis, you can see what direction you're going in, and you can change it. You can course correct. You can change the direction that you're actually going in, so you don't go towards the edge of the cliff anymore. You go actually up the mountain. But it takes a Sherpa to direct you up the mountain. So and start with that book. Like, it's a great book, by the way. Anyway, back to your question, Leigh. What was your question? But we spoke a lot about the business owner side of things. But everyone's a business owner. That's the other side.
This is the magic. Well, the magic is we'll tie that into it, and this is where we start to hone in a bit more on the employee side of things. If that's how you categorize yourself right now, if that's what you identify with, you know, this bit's for you. And if you already are in that position and you already know where we're going to go, more power to you, because the faster you can get into this mindset, I think the faster you're going to see success and freedom on the other side in the coming years. So yeah, the question is, like, why? I mean, we've kind of answered it a lot within that, but let's go a bit more direct. Yeah, why doesn't it pay for an employee to think like a traditional employee anymore?
Because we're in a world of access, and more people are becoming aware that they have control over their own lives, and to act right now as a traditional employee is leaving money on the table, essentially, for yourself, for your future. And that takes zooming out and looking into the long term as well. It's like, okay, what can you do when you're at work other than make money? When I think back to my journey, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to be working 40 hours a week, for example. I'm going to be collecting $1,000 for that 40 hours. But is that it? Like, what else can I do that has a compounding effect later down the line that I might not see for 5 years, 10 years? And one of those things is building your personal brand, no matter how that looks. Now, a lot of the time, the traditional employee might think that they don't have anything interesting enough to share, or that it doesn't make a difference because I'm here anyway, and I don't bring in my own clientele, and I'm getting paid to be here, and that's fine. You know, there'll be a cohort that will just stay there, and that's okay. Like, if you don't want to live your dream life, if you don't want to do all of the things that it is that you want to do with your life, that's fine. Like, stay where you're at, stay in your limitations. But if you want to make some changes, you might not have a clear outlook on it right now, it might not be super clear as to like what the result is going to be of showing up and doing content, building your brand, building your reputation for yourself as an individual. That might not be clear as to why you're doing that right now, but when you go towards that fog, when you like start walking into the fog, it eventually, you walk through the cloud and you come out on the other side and it's like, oh wow, there's actually a lot of options here and there's a lot of choice here. And that is what you can do to be really productive when you're at work. So if you're an employee right now and you're working within someone else's shop, I would recommend every single day that you do some sort of activity that works towards building your brand as an individual. And for the for the business owner that's listening to this, who might think that that's scary because they're going to lose their employees, silly. Don't think about it like that, because they're only going to attract more employees into your business, which keeps the cycle going. Now, that's one way of looking at it. But when I reflect on my journey and I look at what I did even in my cycling career, I was pretty good at branding myself and marketing myself as a cyclist. Like I've said this before, I said it at that Kangan Institute talk in 2011, which was, right now, nearly, 13 years ago now? Nearly 13 years ago. I wrote 54 blog posts on a blog, which was essentially doubled up as my website as a cyclist. How many other cyclists had a website? Not too many. I got a lot of sponsorships. I got a lot of stuff for free. It helped me actually get on teams because I brought more value. If a team were looking at, okay, are we going to take Owen or are we going to take this other guy? Well, let's look at them. They have a similar skill set in terms of how good they are at cycling. But one of them is more attractive to the sponsors and one isn't. Because who pays for cycling teams' budgets? Who pays their wages? Who pays for them to do all of the things that they do? Sponsors do. Companies that are trying to sell something. Money makes the world go around, baby. And if you're not partaking in the game, you're going to get left behind. So and it just leaves you optionless. Why do all these football players, even if you bring the football analogy back into it as well, why do they have their individual deals outside of Manchester United? If Man United's wage was enough for them, which it fucking is pretty much for most of them, but they're not thinking about this is the thing. Hairdressers and barbers need to start thinking like football players. They collect their wage, but they know that they only have a 10-year window. So when they're collecting that wage, what do they do with it? They reinvest it so that they can create extra income streams so that when they finish their career in 10 years' time or whatever it is, that they have other things going on and they have multiple income streams. I don't know if I heard something years and years ago about Wayne Rooney. Wayne Rooney has hundreds of properties in Manchester, as far as I know. He was probably taking on this stuff, getting advice on it from people and buying properties so that when his football career finished, he was setting himself up for generational wealth for him and his family and all the future generations to come. Now, what's the opposite end of the spectrum? Not do any of that, just focus on the reactivity every week, get paid my wage and spend it on a new pair of shoes or something and not think about the future at all. And buy the new pair of shoes once in a while. Do whatever you want with your money, but don't lose sight of what else you can be doing for yourself right now to set yourself free in 10 years from now. Because if you look 10 years into the future, anyone who's listening to this, really great thought experiment. Look 10 years into the future, do you still want to be doing the same thing you're doing today? Does that serve the vision that you have for your life? Can you support a family like that? Can you live the life that you want to live? Because I would imagine the answer is no in most cases. And how much will do you have to even do that? I don't know about you, but that sounds hella fucking boring to me. Do you like my barber slang there? Hella?
Oh, it came back, didn't it? It came back.
That's hella boring, bro. It's hella boring, bro.
Nah, it would be really funny if I started saying that kind of stuff. Oh man, you hit almost every nail on the head there. That was great. And doing bloody 40 skin fades a week just to put food on the table for my kids sounds like hell. Not just hella, but hell. It's like, no. I don't even know where to start anymore. But that was, yeah, it was good. And to the boring piece, like, you know, let's go there. I know that's a thing that a lot of people, my stuff's not good enough, my stuff's not boring, no, I don't have anything like interesting to say. Well, guess what, guys? Ty Lopez says it best, you know, product tells, story sells, right? So what are we all doing? We're all doing the same thing. We're all cutting hair. If we respect the supply and demand curve of the industry, it's saturated right now. We're all doing nice skin phase. Guess what? It's boring. See another skin, you know, and I'm talking like everyone's doing like 8 out of 10 skin fades, right? The 10 out of 10s, that even I still look at them and I'm like, yeah, that's nice. That's like really nice. Great. But most people are doing just 8 out of 10s, right? Great. There's a big chunk of people doing 8 out of 10s. Boring to look at. Okay, so how do we change that then? And Gary Vee said a great one in his book. What was that? Had the hashtag Gary Vee book. He's got like 2 pages on that. People asking him, "Oh, Gary, well, I'm boring and I've got nothing to say." He's like, boy meets girl. He's like, what does that remind you of? It's like Romeo and Juliet. It was like, it's pretty boring, but it's how it was told, which makes it interesting. Romeo and Juliet is a story of boy meets girl. Boring. Happens to everybody. But it's the way it's told is what sells it. Product tells, story sells. So that's all you got to do. Everybody's got a great story. You just explain part of your story. I've got my own story. Think of 3 key points in your life, big life-changing points, and intertwine that into your story. Don't let that go. That's you. That's who you are. Everybody's interesting. It's not just good. It's not enough now just to be like, oh, this is what I do. Yeah, great. Tell people what you do, but how are you telling them what you do? It's just so powerful. And you know, to your point there of like setting yourself up for the future, like that's the key right there, is like digging into what else can I do right now, which adds to the way that I make money, you know, because the second wave, like the industrial way of making money, relying on a safe, secure job, just getting paid your weekly wage and then getting a little bit of super on top of it, is not safe, guys. It's not safe anymore. We saw what happened in the pandemic. You know, people were cashing out on super, people were even losing super, people were losing their jobs. It's just not safe. So how are we setting up this is where thinking like an investor goes. What are all these little pieces of our life doing to set up our world? Now, going out and buying the shoes for you is important, then, you know, by all means go and do it. But to me, it's never been that important. You know, there was a small phase in my life where it was important, and I quickly came back to my senses and was like, this is stupid. I need to set myself up for my future. Now, life, like I keep saying, life is long enough. It's short, but it's long enough if it's lived well. And, you know, barbering careers, hair careers are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. What's the average stat now? 8 years? I heard one the other day where it was even less, 5 years. So what are you going to do with that money that you collect in those 5 years to set yourself up for the future? Now, this whole like price war that's going on right now, I see it as a bit of a chase to the top. Who can charge the most? Guys, if you think it's just about who can charge the most, if you just think that's the aim of the game, you got the game wrong. And guess what? You are gonna head to the edge of a cliff. That's gonna end soon. People can't just keep going up because people are gonna realize this is silly and they're not gonna pay it anymore. The aim of the game is, how can I get paid the most for the value that I bring? And then what is it I do with that money to set myself up for the future? How do I reinvest it? That's the aim of the game. And that's what you've done. That's what I've done. There is enough money in barbering to set yourself up for the future, especially if you look at it over a 10-year period, a 10-year cycle in your life. 100% there's enough money. The trick is, it's about not spending everything that you make. Can you save a bit of money every week? Can you invest a bit of money? Because if you're spending every dollar, get this, there's a stat in the US, I don't know how this works, I guess it's a credit system. The average American spends 17% more money than they make. So, not looking good. Credit, yeah, well, that's a credit system, right? Credit cards. So, why don't you try saving 17% of everything that you make and invest that, whatever that looks like. That can be, we can do a whole nother financial podcast. That's a deep topic. But I heard a great one, have financial clarity. Financial clarity will lead to financial freedom. Like, you can't have financial freedom without financial clarity. If you don't have clarity of what the life is that you want and how you're going to get there, you're never going to find it. And this is why this is important for employees, just relying on an employer to sort that out for you is not safe. Because, especially in the bar world, most employers don't even know what they're doing with their money. Trust me, we know this. We have a coaching group. This is what we help people with. I'd say 90% of employers who we say, do you know your numbers? They say no. Well, that tells me they don't have financial clarity. Therefore, they don't know when the financial freedom's coming. So, that's why it pays to build your own brand, because on top of personal brand, you can drop little things here and there. The way I like to explain personal brand is it's you getting paid to be you. That's it. You get paid to be you. I don't know a better way to make money. I really don't know a better way to make money than being paid to be me. That's the best. Like, the best. It's the easiest. It's the least tiring. It's the one I can do all day, every day, regardless. It's something that could be, for quote unquote, lack of a better word, passive. Like, it's, and don't be afraid to do it, and don't be afraid to surpass the size of the brand that you already work in. If you do, good on you. We need more people doing that. If that doesn't explain the power of it enough, I don't know what will. It's just not safe enough anymore to rely on somebody else to make your financial dreams come true. Because the sad reality is most people don't actually know what they're doing themselves. The people handing you the money don't really know. So that's just my 2 cents on why it's so important.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of mic drop moments in there, and I think that's why it's so important to do our own due diligence when it comes to like what we absorb, what we listen to. You need to listen to more expansive conversations. I did a post on Instagram last night about advice, and this speaks really nicely to advice. It's like, really look at the circle in your life and think, who here can give me the advice that meets the vision that I see in my head for where I want my life to go. And if that's nobody, then that's something worth pausing on and thinking about. And a lot of people's advice, like I was saying, one piece that I said last night, which was huge, it was probably the key part of that post. And it was, and this is generalized, most people will give you advice and it's a projection of their own limitations and their own limiting beliefs, just so that they have more people to meet them in their limitations and in their beliefs, so that they can justify their own existence. And that in itself was one of the more profound things that I actually wrote down. When I wrote it down, I was like, fuck, that's pretty deep. And yeah, and like all of this stuff, I feel like, of course, from time to time in our own personal growth journey, there's been times where I have projected, or I'm projecting my own kind of bias or whatever it is onto situations. But these days, if you look at everything that we say deep enough, it really does come from a place of good. And it might not seem like it on the surface, but ultimately, is it for the greater good of all? Yes, it's for the greater good of all. On And when we say all, we mean everybody in the situation. It actually is for the greater good of the business owner as well, to have your employees operating as business owners. And that's why I can really see the models shifting. And, the whole self-employment model and this and that, it's something that hasn't quite been cracked yet. Like, we don't really know how it works outside of scale, like looking at someone like Salon Lane or any of the kind of co-working spaces that require a scale model in order to work. But I feel like when that does come along and when that code is cracked, it will be cracked really, really well. And some people will do extremely well from it. And it's not even just financial well. This is the thing. Like, how do you want to spend your week? Like how much effort and time and like, going back to what I was saying about the two people that make 30k a month, one person has 30k locked in on reoccurring, which is essentially what share rental or a co-working model, versus the reactive person who's doing, like, on the opposite end of the spectrum, who's doing walk-ins and just hoping. Like, their whole strategy is hope. I just hope enough people walk past today. It's not really a great strategy for long-term joy, because there's always a level of stress that comes with every single week. Are we going to be booked this week? Are we not? And, one thing we said on a call yesterday with our coaching group was, the sad reality is most employees don't want to be busy. Like, people who are stuck in the employee mindset, they don't want to be busy because that's hard work. And you just don't get that. Honestly, like, and I mean this in the nicest way possible again, you just don't get that in the UK and Ireland, which is probably not a good thing either. Like, there's a spectrum of that as well. It's probably not like a healthy thing. Like, I admire it in the Australian culture as well, where it is a little bit more about life than it is about work. But it's almost gone to the point where it's like too much about life, that it's actually working in the benefit of like government and tax. And it's like, it's ridiculous. I bet that statistically, like the American one, I bet that it's similar in Australia. I bet that there's a similar thing going on.
I'm sure it is. And the model that we speak to now is like, setting this stuff up for yourself. I think sits above those two. You got the UK model, you got like the Australian model, and then the model that we're talking about kind of sits up here because it pulls the best of both. It pulls the best of the work hard, and then we can even put like work smart in the middle, and lifestyle. So you got work hard, work smart, work lifestyle, and you end up with this blend of all of them, which sits above, which gives you, back to what you said at the start, gives you choices. That's the freedom part that we're talking about. We just want to be able to choose what we do with our time when we want to do it. And that speaks to your point about just being careful about who you take your advice from. There's a lot of advice coming from bias, and my filter is, if I look at someone and they're giving me, they're either projecting or they want to give me advice, whatever, I look at how much joy do they have in their life, and is it coming from a place of empowerment? Secondly, do I like the way they live? Do I like the way they're living their life? If they are, if I do like that, I might go towards it. But if I don't, it's a straight no. And people can say what they want about us and our business, but we're living it. We use barbering as the vehicle to put ourselves in a place of quote unquote freedom, to choose the way that we use our time and do what we want to do when we want to do it. We're making the investments, the property, the stock market, the coaches, all the stuff that we want to do, the relationships, the travel, like the proof's in the pudding. And yeah, just be careful where you get your advice from. And that's why I think we do what we do, because we want to share this story with people and share that there is another model. We can take the best of everything and put it together into this new model. And one day we're going to have to do it again. We're going to have to adjust and go again and go again. But without the space and the options and the ability to look down on these things, it's very hard to pivot, very, very hard. And to the employees that are just stuck, not stuck, but relying on an employer or someone else to make these dreams come true for you, I just don't think it's going to happen. It's really up to you to take this yourself, find the help, pay for speed. It's what we do. We cut a check for speed. We just find people that are 10x where we are or living the life that we'd like. Find them, pay them, get them to tell us how they did it, implement fast, and we move ahead.
It's not that hard, actually. It's very simple.
The pieces of the puzzle aren't hard. It's this that's hard. It's the mindset shift and the humility needed to step back and go, okay, yeah, maybe I've been doing it this way. Maybe I need to do it this way. That's the hard bit. Getting past the humility. Because again, most people are tied up in their emotions, right? Like they bring so much emotion to business. When we had this great chat on one of our coaching calls the other day about peer, peer validation. Like for me, I don't look for peer validation. I just look for peer feedback. All I'm looking at is feedback. Did this work? Did it not? And is it getting me closer to where I want to be? Yes or no? Simple. Business is the vehicle that I use to get to where I want to be. And if I can intertwine all of my preferences within that, it's a life of freedom. It's a life of joy.
Yeah.
It's super powerful. It's one not to forget. So then how do people start to build their own personal brand and not think like an employee? I think firstly, it's think about what do you want from life and how can you maximize your time? But what are some of the tangible things that people can do?
Oh, you're asking me a question?
What are some of the things that people can do? If you're an employee and you don't know where to start, if you're thinking, well, what do I do to like work on my own personal brand?
Just look at what other people are doing and copy it. Like look at what other people are doing that you admire and mirror what they're doing. But just when I say copy it, don't directly copy it, but like copy the strategy, the model, like how are they going about it, and put it into your own life, plug it into your own life. Because another thing that we learned over the years, and one of our coaches taught us, is at a certain point you don't have the right to innovate, because you have to copy to start. It's the same as anything. When you learn how to walk, you have to copy adults. Like you don't just say, I'm going to walk my own way. I'm sure we said this before on a podcast, but I'm going to be a unicorn and I'm going to walk backwards. Well, let's see how far that gets you. Like you haven't earned the right to innovate yet. Like, so just look at what other people are doing, take what you like from it, blend a few things together, and just start small. Start with taking photos of your haircuts every day and posting them online and acting as if the business is yours, because it is yours. It's you. You are the business, and that's it. Start by taking photos of your products and making offers. Like, that's it. Make offers to potential clients on Instagram, online. Just be like, hey, this is what I do. I cut hair. Boom. Start there.
Yeah, I love that line of good artists copy and the best artists steal. If you want to be good and just make a start, like you say, just copy. Just copy. Success leaves clues, guys. Look to the most successful people and copy. But the thing is, it doesn't stop there. That's where people can get stuck trying to be someone else. Don't copy for the point of trying to be someone else. Copy for the fact of trying to get the things that you like that they have, whether it's time, money, freedom. Now, the dangerous one is notoriety. People can get stuck in the validation. Copy someone else just to get the validation that they have. Well, validation doesn't always get you paid. It doesn't always get you closer to your dreams. So be careful of that trap. But again, that's personal development. If you've done enough personal development, that won't be an issue for you. Validation isn't an issue. Doesn't matter. It's just feedback. But the best artists steal. And what that means is you take the whole concept and put it through your own filter. I love that. When we look back to some of the best businesses, I was listening to a podcast on this just recently, what Mark Zuckerberg did with or was it Instagram with stories. They actually got that from Snapchat. He just outright stole the idea and put it on because he knew that without it, his business wasn't going to make it. Instagram wouldn't be what it is without stories. So he didn't just copy the way that Snapchat did it. He stole it and put it through his own filter changed it up a little bit, and now Instagram is what it is, and he's, you know, one of the richest man on, I think, in existence per age. So there are richer people, but I think for his age, if you age reduce it, he's like the richest man ever or something, which is wild. But that's it. Good artists copy, best artists steal. Don't be afraid to steal ideas, because success leaves clues, and put them through your own filter. Get artistic with it, put it through your own filter. Start building your brand. And don't forget to put your face on it. I think that don't forget to put your own personality to it as well. That's massive. Throw a bit of yourself in there. Give people the product. Remember, product tells, story sells. So tell people what you have. This is what I have. Do you want it? This is what I have. Do you want it? Oh, here's the person that does it. Here's me. Here's what I have. Do you want it? Here's what I have. Do you want it? Here's the person that does it. And keep going from there. And just honestly, guys, my best piece of advice, this is going to come from a place of bias, because, you know, judgment creeps in. Sometimes it's just put the blinkers on. Don't worry about what people say. Shut those guys out. Like, don't worry about it. Because sooner or later, personal brand's going to be normalized, and everyone's going to need one.
The thing is, you know, a lot of barbers will get stuck on, I don't want to copy another barber because of what the barber world will say. But if you only serve clients, you don't have an educational offering, or you're not somebody who does work with other barbers and who gives a fuck. Like, your clients are the ones that are paying your bills. They don't care. They don't see it anywhere else. And really, the reality of it is the person who you've taken it from doesn't really care either, because they've done it first. So, like, yeah, it doesn't really. That's a sticking point, and I don't think it needs to be the unique thing. Is a sticking point. If you really want to be unique, this is an interesting thing. You really want to be unique. Go look at another industry and take something from there and bring it in. Like that's, and it's still really at its core not unique. Very hard to be unique these days and create something that hasn't been done before. Like, look at the amount of people. The world's never been as populated. There's never been as much access to information. To just get stuck there is going to keep you stuck forever. So my best advice is just get started. Start telling people about your products. We've clever ways into it. The more you do, the more you'll realise that you can do. But the less you do, the more you'll be stuck.
Yep. One of the great lines we use in Creative Mastery is, you know, innovation or creativity is just undetected plagiarism. Everyone's copying someone. Everyone gets their ideas from somewhere. It's rare that anything's ever invented. You know, there's even debates. You know, nothing's new under the sun. Nothing is unique under the sun. Everything's here already. It's done. Which is, coming at it from that mindset is fantastic. It's just doing whatever works for you. And try not to worry about what other people say. And if they do say something, just use it as feedback. It's okay. Doesn't mean anything about you. Just a tool. Just some feedback. Everybody's on their own journey. Everybody's got their own story. Everybody's got their own patterns. And that's fine. You want to go deeper, you start learning about the triggers. You know, there's 39 human triggers, psychological triggers. You really want to get good at this stuff? Use some of them. Do it on purpose and see where it goes.
Nice. So, if you're an employee and you don't think you have a business, key points from today's podcast. If you're an employee and you don't think you have a business, think again, because you do. You are your business. If you're a business owner and you have employees, encourage them to build their personal brand, because it's only going to benefit you and your business. And that, to be honest, is kind of like the key points. Unless you want to bring up anything else, but I feel like for me, that's kind of like the key points.
Yeah. And last point for the employees listening, get started, start building your personal brand. Because even if you are an employee and you feel like you do have a couple of years left in that kind of season of your life, great. Let that personal brand build, because the moment you're ready to drop something onto it, a product or whatever it is you plan on doing in your future, it's going to be there. You're going to have that, those raving fans ready and waiting for you, which is so powerful. And that's what gives you options in the future. And that's what reduces the stress, reduces the pain. And it can create a real Real beautiful life, real joyful life.
Another great example before we go, couple of things to go and watch. Go and watch the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, and see the difference between Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Who got treated in what way and who got paid more money. Scottie Pippen didn't have as big of a personal brand as Michael Jordan did. He could have, but he didn't, and he was getting paid peanuts, and Michael Jordan was the most paid sports player ever. Go and look at the David Beckham documentary. He is the definition of a personal brand. Every club that he went to benefited massively from it. I think when he went to Real Madrid, they did the most shirt sales that they ever did or something. And yeah, what else? That Nike documentary, is it Air? It speaks to the Air Jordans. That there's a lot of lessons weaved in there as well about brand and building brand within a team. Again, similar to the football analogy. It's like the brand within the team. You know, like, I don't know about you, but I don't know anything about the stadium that Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls were playing in. I don't know what that was called, but I know about the Bulls, but I know more about Michael Jordan. So the individual is where the power lays, if it's done well. But look, there's even within that team, there's people that are unknown. I couldn't name the full list of players that were on that team. Couldn't. I can list 3, like Dennis Rodman, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. That's it. So that's kind of like our final parting words. Like, take that, correlate it, bring it across into barbering, or whatever industry you're in. This goes to any industry. Make yourself more valuable, because the more valuable you are, the more value you will receive.
Hey, extra 10%, baby. That's it's becoming my new hashtag. Extra 10%, because wherever you look in life, those who do extra 10% seem to be doing more. And I think it's in the book. Is it in Think and Grow Rich, or is it in The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, where they say, you know, he who's rendered more than what he's paid for will always succeed more than the next man, and it only needs to be 10%. And if it's a game of energy, you got energy to give that extra 10% consciously, out of your will. It's not hard to be the uncommon amongst the common anymore. And that's one of the great, I've realised it a lot. It's one of the great pieces of advice my dad gave me was, just that. Don't be the man who does just enough. Be the man who does that extra 10%. Because once you get there, there's not many people doing it.
No.
It's huge.
So guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another rendition of Unlimited with Leigh and Eoin. Yeah, leave a comment, do all of the things, and we'll see you next week.
Stay unlimited.